Today I'm going to talk about themes of Foe, the novel written by J.M. Coetzee. This is my personal information about the author. James Coetzee, his full name is John Maxwell Coetzee. He was born on February 9, 1940 in South Africa. He is a South African novelist, critic, and translator, and his novels are mostly affected and influenced by colonization. And in 2003, he won Nobel Prize for Literature. So summary is the novel that summary of Foe. Foe is the novel that woven around Robinson Crusoe of Daniel Defoe. There are four parts in the novel. So the first part is in the first part, Susan Barton. She is the protagonist. She is searching for her missing daughter in Brazil. She is thrown up on the Iceland after shipboard mutiny and gradually adjusts to the basic environment and company of long-term castaway Crusoe and his African slave Friday. Rescued a year later, she was upon the Crusoe was dead, and she was asked to write with or team up with any writer. So on the in the part two, marooned again in English society when the chosen writer Daniel Foe flees his debts and run away from the bailiffs. Susan struggles to survive with the newly freed Friday the slaver, and she is now searching for the Daniel Foe who has actually fled. So on the in the third part, Susan eventually finds Foe and queries the book's process. She asks for the content. She want the another story for to write, and Daniel Defoe asks about the another story. So together they speculate about story and truth and the act of writing, and what to do with Friday is now a concern. And in the last part, an undefined neutral voice stresses the generalized beginning and in the end of the story in both the time, and unhinged from embodied search for verifiable fact. In this the true perspective. In two versions, it comes upon the characters in the submerged wreck of the ship, lifeless. Only Fry is still barely alive. So the speaker's point of view then travels out into the dimension of experience and sensation beyond human and Iceland and the sea, and beyond both the speech and the writing. So the themes are like authorship, otherness, freedom, truth and power, colonialism, slavery, motherhood, and identity. These are the themes of Foe. So first is the authorship. The idea of authorship emerges in the play on Defoe's name, and the author of Robinson Crusoe was a man of many roles. So in that novel, there were many roles in the for the Robinson Crusoe, and now in this novel, the protagonist is Susan. So it seems like she's purely self-interested, exploiting all resources. Coetzee, through the medium of Susan's direct addresses, first sets up the shadowy figure of Foe, the author claiming to the partner Susan in creating a book. In the first two parts, enterprise and ownership plays a large role in the disputed shape of story. He argues that Friday should be taught to write, but now Friday is old and he is too late for his colon. It is too late to teach him because of this his colonized body. And Foe colonizes Susan's story, and she colonizes Friday's unknown story. So authorship is there in this theme. Then the otherness is also important theme. As a woman, Susan is already the marginalized other, yet she also objectifies Friday. In her varied perception, she wonders if he has a cannibal, where he can actually come from, what he understand, why he dances, and most significantly why he has no tongue, and whether it was slave traders or Crusoe who cut it out. So it could be possible that Crusoe is the boss. She projects some of her own answers onto him, but also opens herself out to absorbing information about him through observation and awareness. He is like a blank slate in many ways, as it often the case with others, those from different culture and races. White people project their reading onto him and create a story for him, maintaining his actual silence and virtual invincibility. And freedom. there is a lake of freedom seems in this novel. For example, the Susan and Fo, they are caught up in the system. Susan is finding her daughter. She needs to find her daughter, and it is improvised by her search, which takes another form when she returns to England. Physically, safety is also a concern for a woman. Friday is her burden, but he paradoxically represents the lost freedom because he is the slave. He remains as a slave, constrained by loss and a word that is alien to him. Leaving the Iceland does not represent freedom, and his life with Crusoe was simple and safe. And it is written here that Susan says that our desires are plain, his and mine, but how is Friday to recover his freedom, who has been a slave all his life? There is an urging that we need, all of us in our hearts, to be free, yet which of us can say what freedom truly is? Now, truth and power. The deserted tropical Iceland has become a trope for fantasy in the modern world, and dreams have become a central language. Truth and desire at the core of the novel's themes and our tenuous grip on reality, language, voice, and identity become the focus of Susan's discussions with Foe in the part 3. So, what is Susan's story? What happened to her daughter? Is it that woman's story are also invincible, repressed, and eclipsed? Who is the young woman, and what are Foe and Susan to each other? Did Friday lose his tongue at the end of the oppressors? What were Crusoe's intention for posterity in building the terraces on the Iceland? So these are some questions that are that are these are avoided in the novel. So we can say that there is a lake of truth there, and the power. The frames and layers of story within Foe are centered to the truth project and the reflection on language and power. Self-reflexive metafiction interest, of course, in the higher author are at play. Authorship, as Foe and Susan's discuss, is like providence, an unknowledgeable God, creative power, the wonder of words, and power of writing. For example, you and I know in our different ways how rambling and occupation writing is, and conjuring is surely much as the same. Have we cause to believe that the leaves it is given us to life proceed with any more design that these whimsical adventures? And the another is colonialism and slavery. So when it was written, Robinson Crusoe, 1719, when it was actually written, it was the time of slavery and colonialism. People were taken from Africa and they were transported across the Atlantic Ocean to the colonial in the New World. So Ford suggests that Friday was one of these people who is actually slave. He is taken from Africa by slavers and was destined for a life in shackles until a shipwreck cast him ashore on the Iceland with Crusoe. The Iceland becomes a microcosm remuneration. Friday has no tongue and no way with which to communicate his suffering. He is the slave, so that he is robbed of his agency and freedom just like the slaves of the era. The development of Friday as a character reflects the themes of colonialism and the way in which attitudes toward colonialism and slavery have developed in the centuries since the Defoe's original book to the Foe. Susan considered Friday to be the stupid man and rude slave at first. She does not even consider the possibility that he might be interesting or worthy of her attention. She treats him as she would any house slave in Brazil by her own admission, and she is disgusted that he fails to treat her with falling respect. Now, the last theme is motherhood and identity. Susan is a mother without a child. She has spent years searching for her daughter. Her daughter was supposedly kidnapped and sent to the Americas, and the search has taken over Susan's life. Originally from a relatively modest but successful home, Susan spends everything she has in her fruitless search. Now, on the other hand, when she shipwrecked during the voyage to England, and once again her life is thrown out of the chaos, now the narrative and the story changes because now she is on the another side, the narrative begins at Susan swims toward the islands. She meets Crusoe and Friday and enters into the new identity as a castaway. So from the motherhood and to the castaway, she's somewhere having the suffering between identity. So these are my references. Thank you.
Can you say something more about otherness?
Yeah. Uh,
Dhwani, do you find any similarity in Foe's themes, authorship or freedom?
yes, freedom, right? On and authorship. Okay, so first the freedom's point. Uh, we can see that as I told a lot that Friday is a slave. So it seems like he's not free. Then Susan is also not free as having she's somewhere living in the patriarchal society, and she's finding her daughter. So she has constantly a conscious mind about her daughter. Then she is cast away, then she's dependent on someone, and she's not having the freedom, she's not having a free mind. And yeah.